Okay, this is Nick Rook with College Golf Camps of America, back with you guys talking about grit, continuing on the topic of grit. What is a gritty player, how to make a gritty player, how to create a gritty environment. And today we are excited to be joined by Dr. Nick Molinaro. He is a licensed sports psychologist. He works with the Golf Channel and Michael Breed and several PGA, LPGA players and several other people. So Dr. Nick, how are you today?
Great, Nick, and thanks for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We appreciate you joining us here. So Dr. Nick, as we all like to call him, has over 35 years experience in sports psychology. He's a licensed psychologist. Obviously, he's worked with multiple PGA players, LPGA players, former Olympic gold athletes, NFL players, and gymnastics, all run the kind of the gamut of athletes. So Dr. Nick's website is drnickmolinaro.com, and we're excited to have Dr. Nick join us today for multiple reasons. He'll be joining our camps this summer as well to present on the topic of grit and many other things. So, Dr. Nick, all is going well today. What is new in your world?
Well, I'm pretty excited to actually tomorrow be on Sirius XM Radio with Michael Breed on the new breed of golf, and we'll actually be discussing the topic of grit as well.
Oh, the irony! Awesome. Well, grit is a new. It's an old topic, but it seems like it's being discussed a lot today with some of these players around the PGA. Maybe you can start by this. You can look around some of the PGA and LPGA, and you watch some of these players that come through, and there's obviously a young, just a young group of people coming through those two organizations right now that are winning or having a ton of success. And not all of them have a perfect golf swing, and not all of them are the best player from tee to green, or even on the green for that matter, like Jordan Spieth, obviously, and some others on the LPGA tour. So, from your perspective, what is grit, and what is can you give us a couple of gritty examples of players today, maybe one or two on each organization?
Well, sure. Let's take a look at the definition of this. Well, first of all, grit is a very self-disciplined player, and combined with their kind of perseverance over a long period of time towards goals and a passionate commitment to this task and a burning desire. But what I really want to stress here is that since it's, to begin with, a non-cognitive trait, which means that it's kind of like within the person, and clearly we can develop more of this within people, it's a really important piece to take a look at. So some people have this kind of in a more kind of internal way, and other people don't. But I can tell you this, one of the most important factors about grit is that a player perseveres in spite of the fact that it might not even have positive reinforcement. That's a really important piece, for any player, and particularly juniors.
Okay. And so is there a couple of people that you could maybe give some examples of? Obviously, there's the huge ones like Jordan Spieth or whatnot. What do you think that helped created a gritty? What helps create a gritty player? Maybe some environments that you can try to, some competitive environments on the practice range, or when you're out on a practice round, or we deal with a ton of parents here at college golf camps, as you know, and so how can a parent help create a gritty environment to have kids learn and grow from?
Well, first of all, I think that it's really important that you have what's called deep, dedicated, and deliberate practice. And, by that, it means that you've really kind of outlined what the practice is going to be, and that you do this in what I would describe in a focused effort way, so that you measure your focused effort on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most focused effort you can bring. So when you take a look at a gritty player is going to make sure that they persevere and that they limit their attention to that very specific task of focused effort. So that the swing, mechanics are important. The effort, in each of the components of the swing are really critical. So a person who's really using grit knows that this is going to be a long period of time to get them to where they need to be. That's a really important piece both in practice and when you look at a person who has grit. That the timeline is not that it's going to happen immediately. It's going to happen over a long period of time. So I would think that the parents have to stress that the player needs to practice in a deep, dedicated, and a deliberate way. And I would say 20-minute sections, within a practice, no more than 2 hours a day, not including being on the course, and to encourage them to recognize that this is a journey into the rest of their golf and clearly in their life, because it's not going to happen immediately.
And so maybe from a parent's perspective, then we'll bounce back to the player, but from a parent's perspective, there's a fine line there between, supporting, maybe being overly involved. Maybe after creating a gritty practice session for your son or daughter, or maybe picking them up after a gritty session with their swing instructor, what are maybe some of the key topics, or maybe the kind of key questions that they can ask to engage with their son or daughter, but not kind of overstep the bounds of just being a little bit too overbearing and not making it fun for the kid?
Sure. I think that it's important for the parent to ask the player to share what it is that they think after each shot. Because, after the shot is completed, a gritty player is going to be able to identify. I always ask the question, did you get it done, and what did you learn? So a question like that gets us to identify, did you get it done, yes or no, and what did you learn, whether you got it done or whether you didn't. You've learned something from this. So I think questions obviously have to be designed to engage the individual. Simple question, did you get it done? Did you get the shot done? And what did you learn? So I think parents could use that. So how did your practice go? Did you get done what you needed to? And what did you learn from it? Something simple like that. And I think then parents can start to model what might be, what I teach my players, a post-shot routine. Did you get it done, and what did you learn?
So maybe can you give us a couple of examples for the player on maybe you talked about some 20-minute sessions and whatnot. Do you have a specific drill or example of a practice session that a kid could go through or a player could go through to create that gritty environment?
Yeah, let's take a look at putting, and so you make a decision about the distance from the hole, and you put up maybe 5 different shots, and that clearly you have to make all 5 of those shots before you go on to the next hole. So maybe you're going to play 6 holes, but you got to get 5 in a row, and if not, then you have to go back to the hole before that. So you make 5 the first hole, you make 4 in the second hole. Now you got to go back to the first hole, do 5, and then the second hole, do 5, and on and on. Now, what this is going to teach is how they're going to handle frustration. So a simple explanation, again, of a gritty player is you don't have to have positive reinforcement to get the job done. So in other words, if they missed it, then the question is, what did I learn from this? Well, I learned, maybe my focused effort wasn't there. Maybe it wasn't an 8 out of 10. Or maybe it was my stroke. But something's going to come from this. And so I think when you kind of infuse the whole concept of grittiness, there can be disappointment that you missed the shot, but there's not disappointment in yourself. This is all part of that whole journey because the perseverance is very, very long term. So I think in an example like this, where we're not expecting the player to make 6 holes, 5 shots in a row immediately, it's going to teach them how to remain focused and how not to be down on themselves and how to use a concept of grit to move forward in the perseverance of the goal.
And why 5? Any reason why? Is that just a number?
No, that's just what I use. I've experimented with 3. I think it's a little simple. I think 10 is a little bit hard, so 5 is the number that I use.
Yeah, okay. And so one of the things that we're going to do with Dr. Nick is Dr. Nick is, like we said, a licensed psychologist, and he has a test that we are able to give players. And it's a psychometric test, is that right, Dr. Nick, or is it a cognitive awareness test? Essentially being able to compare your cognitive abilities or psychometric abilities to other amateur golfers and elite players. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, certainly an excellent question, Nick. So it's called the Performance Under Pressure test, and it was standardized on Olympic athletes. And it's still used with the Navy SEALs, CIA, FBI, and we have norms for, junior players as well as, tour players and obviously any of the other sports that I work with. Now the test, because it's a performance under pressure test, we can identify which mental skills, and I'll just go through a couple of them, like awareness or external distractibility, things going on around you, or internal distractibility, or the speed with which you can make decisions, or the fluidity of being able to shift your attention and your ability to regulate emotions. Now, this is an important piece. So let's say we're working with a tour player, and then we'll move to a junior. And a tour player, of all the hours I work with them, I'm trying to get them 2 shots around. If I know that if they're 2 shots or 3 shots around, if they're shooting 2 or 3 under every time they go out, they're going to be on the PGA Tour for a long, long time. So all of my work is aimed at performance under pressure, and pressure varies for each player. So when I work with a junior, and obviously kind of looking at their handicap, we're working with maybe 8 shots or 6 shots or 10 shots. And so the test is designed to identify what's going to happen for those 10 shots and being able to identify the specific area that they're having difficulty with and the skill that they need to develop in order to perform at a higher level. And as you know, Nick, as we've looked over your profile, that test was very accurate, wouldn't you say?
It was pretty darn accurate, yes, sir. Yeah, it was a little scary how accurate it was, actually.
Yeah.
Kind of like my golf game, except for scary, inaccurate. Well, so tell us, so you're on the Golf Channel a lot, or multiple times you've been on there. Today you're going on SiriusXM, or tomorrow you're going on SiriusXM with Michael Breed. Maybe is there something you've learned from the Golf Channel or Michael Breed on your presentations, or maybe your approach with athletes that maybe you've incorporated in the last? We're all here to learn, right? I mean, we're all learning. You've talked about that.
Absolutely.
So maybe what's something that you've learned over the last, 12, 18 months since you've been involved with the Golf Channel on your approach to coaching elite athletes?
Michael has helped me try to narrow my focus down in the sharing of information. I have a lot of information, and I think that sometimes my presentation is a little bit too encompassing, and I really have to remember that even though I have short periods of time on the Golf Channel, 5 minutes or less to get a point across. So it's not been easy to try to get all that information in, and Michael has tried to help me organize that in a more cogent and with the strictness of the timing to try to get that across.
Yeah. Interesting. Putting restrictions on a psychologist.
Yep.
That's interesting. Well, so you offer a lot of different opportunities for kids and for elite players with mental skills training and optimal performance under pressure, things like that. You're involved with a company called Marquee Golf, which is a platform for junior golfers to help them, bridge that gap into college golf, which we're excited about. Maybe give us a success story about, maybe a player who had some grit and maybe you brought it out of them through over a period of time. Maybe there's an athlete, maybe not even in golf. Maybe it has to do gymnastics or another level. So maybe just give us an example, and you don't have to use names, obviously.
Sure. Well, I can tell you about a player that I worked with several years ago, and he is a great player, hits the ball very long. Actually, we spent time at one of the U.S. Opens that I was able to work with him at, and he outdrove some of the longest players on the tour, and his 3-wood was around 320. So in spite of the fact that he had all these skills, there were some things that were interfering his performance over a long period of time. Worked with him for 2 years, obviously using this mental skills test, and identified what were factors that influenced his performance when he was under pressure. And just before we got to the U.S. Open that year, he shot 59, 60, and 61 in competitions. So we know that he's a player. And so what we had to do is identify not only could he be able to persevere, and so if we look at qualities of grit, the problem is that grit's not the only thing that you need to use. So when we take grit, and I want to make sure that that's really well understood, because I think grit's getting a lot of publicity now, but it's not the only quality that's necessary to perform at a high level. So in spite of the fact that this young man had a great deal of perseverance, what was happening with him was that he was not managing distractions very well. And as a result of that, it pulled him off the path, and he didn't make the cut in spite of the fact that he's a really quality player. I think that's a really good example of, our work with individuals is that we identify all the components. Grit is a great process component, but it's not the only one, and neither is decision making. So when we analyze the entire player, we set up a program for them and identify 20 mental skills in order for this to take place. So this individual went on. He played in a couple of tour events, and I think has now made a decision not to go on further with his career. So it was pretty exciting to see where he got. He was the medalist both at the locals and at the sectionals, shot 59, 60, and 61 about a month before he went into the Open and didn't qualify, mostly I think because of what we're talking about. There are other factors that influence this in addition to grittiness.
Well, Dr. Nick is out of New Jersey. Like I said, he'll be at our camps this summer, a few of them presenting on different psychometric skills and mental training and optimal performance training. We're excited to be a part of him and him a part of us. And his website is drnickmolinari.com. And so anything else, Dr. Nick, on the topic of grit? Obviously, tell us one more time, you're going to be with Michael Breed on SiriusXM when?
Tomorrow, March 16th, and my appearance starts at 9:15, and it's we're slotted for 15 minutes, but if I can get some callers, we can go to 45. The last time I spoke with Michael, it lasted for about a half an hour. Not sure when I'll be on the Golf Channel. I just sent my proposal in for the rest of my appearances this year, and I'll know sometime this week, and I'll have my schedule of events coming up very soon.
Great. Well, Dr. Nick, we sure appreciate your time. We know that you're a busy guy, and so we'll give you the last topic here. What do you want the junior golfers and parents to go out and do for the remainder of this week and the first part of next week to start their optimal training if they haven't already started?
They should set goals. Goal setting is broken down to 3 basic areas. I'll make this brief. What's your long-term goal? Maybe reduce your handicap or make an event win. Your performance goals, things that are measurable. Greens and regulations are a good example. And then your process goal. And clearly here becomes the psychological aspect. Focus, attention, effective decision-making speed, all those kinds of things. And that would be my suggestion to them, is to get a really great goal-setting plan for each and every practice and each and every event.
Yep. Well, that is good feedback. drnickmolinari.com, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate your time, Dr. Nick. You have a great day, and we'll be sure to tune in tomorrow with Golf Channel and Michael Breed.
Thank you very much, Nick.
Have a great day, sir. Thank you.
Great. Bye-bye.